You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
Imagine handing your team a brand new tool that lets them write code like 100 times faster. You'd think your company's profits would just absolutely skyrocket overnight, right?
Right. I mean, you really would expect that.
But instead, the product stalls, your stakeholders are furious, and you've basically burned millions on a pilot program that goes nowhere. Today, we are looking at why giving AI to enterprise teams is suddenly destroying ROI for so many companies. Welcome to the deep dive.
I'm really excited to get into this one. It's so relevant to what we're seeing right now.
Definitely. So whether you're a product manager, a software engineer, or just someone trying to avoid information overload while staying relevant in your career, you are going to get some massive clarity today on where your daily work is actually heading.
Yeah, because things are moving incredibly fast.
They really are. And our mission today is to synthesize the stack of cutting-edge tech strategy newsletters from late June 2026. We want to uncover how the role of the human builder is radically shifting now that AI is handling the heavy lifting. Okay, let's unpack this.
So it really is the defining paradox of our current technology landscape. I mean, we have never possessed the ability to execute tasks faster than we do right now.
Right.
Yet we are witnessing this massive wave of enterprise AI projects just failing to produce any real return on investment.
Why is that? Because on paper, it just seems so counterintuitive.
Well, the underlying reason is that while AI accelerates execution without a deeply shared vision, it basically acts as a massive magnifying glass for misalignment.
Wow. So moving 10 miles an hour off course is a frustrating detour, but moving 1,000 miles an hour off course is a catastrophe.
Exactly. David Pereira points this out beautifully. The root cause of all these derailments is that companies are treating AI like it's simply a new, faster hammer.
They just deploy the tools and call it a day?
Yeah, they focus purely on the deployment, but they don't give their teams the autonomy to fundamentally redesign the actual workflows.
So if a team lacks the authority to change how the daily work gets done, these integrations become just incredibly expensive tech demos.
Pretty much. They're essentially just optimizing a completely broken process.
Which is such a waste. It's like putting a Ferrari engine in a golf cart without upgrading the steering or the brakes. You aren't going to get to your destination faster. You're just going to crash spectacularly because the infrastructure can't handle the output.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. And this leads into a massive strategic vulnerability across the industry right now, which is the dilemma of renting versus owning intelligence.
Renting meaning like relying entirely on third-party models.
Yes. When a company rents its intelligence for core cognitive tasks, they remain highly vulnerable. They're entirely at the mercy of outside pricing changes, model deprecations decisions completely beyond their control. What's fascinating here is that while AI has commoditized the speed of execution, it has placed an absolute premium on human judgment.
Because we still need humans to provide the alignment.
Exactly. To actually solve the correct business problems rather than just solving the wrong problems at lightning speed.
That feels like a huge shift in the power dynamic. I mean, if executing the work is cheap and instantaneous, the genuinely hard part is no longer figuring out how to build something.
No, the hard part is deciding what to build in the first place. And more importantly, who gets to make that call?
Right. And for founders and product teams, this creates a major fork in the road. You have to make a choice. Are you going to build the agent or are you going to power the agent?
But how do you actually make that choice strategically? Like, what's the framework there?
Well, Tani J. Perea breaks this down. It hinges on where your customer actually works and where your product's true value lies.
Okay, I'm following.
So if your company owns the full workflow, meaning the user spends their whole day inside your interface, and your value is in your capabilities, then you build the agent.
Right, yeah, makes sense.
But if your value is locked up in proprietary data and unique context, you might be much better off powering someone else's agent by acting as the data layer.
Ah, I see. But regardless of which path you take, these autonomous systems can't just run wild. Effective AI agent loops need incredibly clear goals and rigorous human oversight.
Yeah, I read about that Mozilla Firefox example in Lenny's newsletter, where they used AI to hunt for security bugs. But how does that human oversight actually function in practice? You can't just have a human reading millions of lines of AI-generated code.
You definitely don't. The way Mozilla approached this was by architecting a very specific loop. They didn't just unleash an AI model on their codebase.
Okay, so what did they do?
They built a system where a smaller model identified potential vulnerability patterns first. Then a human engineer triaged those and set strict parameters around the patterns.
Got it.
And only then did a larger AI model attempt to generate the fix within those human-defined guardrails.
Oh, so the human acts as the conductor defining the boundaries, and the AI is simply the orchestra iterating within them. That makes perfect sense for bug hunting, where there's a clear right or wrong answer. But what about creating something entirely new? There was that fascinating piece asking, can AI make an iPhone?
Yeah, the argument there is that AI can generate endless variations and ideas, but making a truly great product requires taste.
But wait, isn't taste just a subjective, artistic buzzword? I mean, if an AI can iterate 1,000 times a minute testing user variations, how do we actually apply human taste systematically?
It feels subjective, but
Yeah.
taste in this enterprise context is actually a highly disciplined strategic filter.
So it's not just about aesthetics.
No, not at all. An AI will gladly give you an infinite menu of perfectly functional features. Taste is the human discipline of extreme restraint.
Meaning you have to say no.
Exactly. It's the ability to look at 100 AI-generated ideas that technically work and systematically say, no, this specific feature dilutes the core user experience. It is the discipline to protect a clear vision by repeatedly saying no to good ideas.
So that truly iconic ideas survive.
Right. And if you are listening to this right now and you're a product manager staring at a Jira board full of developer tasks, this next part is going to totally validate your frustrations.
Oh, absolutely. Because if human judgment and this concept of taste are the new premium skills, it means the old ways we used to measure productivity are completely broken.
They're entirely obsolete.
Yeah.
I mean, for years, Itamar Gilad points out, we've measured developer productivity using activity metrics lines of code written, commits to the code base, tokens generated.
But those simply measure output.
Yes. And in an era where generating code tokens is basically free, measuring code output is meaningless. Teams have to be measured strictly by the business and user outcomes they create.
Like the Verif example. They're an identity verification company, and they deliver 99.6% accuracy with a 6-second verification time.
That's incredibly fast.
Yeah, and they provide real-time user guidance to stop blurry photos before the user even submits them. That is a concrete outcome. The end user does not care if it took 10 lines of code or 10,000 lines to build that flow.
No, they only care about that 6-second seamless experience. The business value is entirely in the speed and accuracy of the user experience, not the sweat equity of the developers.
Right, and this critical shift away from output changes how we evaluate our internal ideas, too. For years, teams have relied on confidence scores, putting arbitrary numbers on a spreadsheet to decide what feature to build next.
But those scores create false precision. They give the illusion of mathematical certainty. And worse, they inherently favor safe, incremental ideas over genuinely innovative ones.
So what's the alternative?
Well, Smart Bear wrote about this. The new approach requires prioritizing observable impact by making bounded bets.
Wait, let's pause there. What exactly is a bounded bet in this context? Because, I don't know, it sounds a bit like gambling.
It's actually the opposite of gambling. It's risk mitigation. A traditional confidence score says, I am 80% confident this feature will generate $2 million in revenue.
Which is just a guess dressed up as data.
Exactly. A bounded bet changes the framing completely. You say, I will risk exactly 2 weeks of one engineer's time to put a fake buy now button on the website to see if users will even click it.
Oh, so the downside is completely capped or bounded at 2 weeks of time, but the upside potential remains open.
Right. You are buying information cheaply rather than guessing the future.
But if we throw out commit counts, and we throw out confidence scores, and we throw out quarterly planning, which the source is actually called an outdated scarcity ritual, aren't we just flying blind?
It might feel that way at first.
How do you keep the finance department and stakeholders happy when you're operating on bounded bets and telling them quarterly plans are dead?
You have to remember that quarterly planning was designed for an era when engineering time was incredibly scarce and had to be rationed months in advance.
Oh.
Today, when AI collapses development time, locking your strategy into a rigid 90-day cycle is a massive competitive disadvantage. You aren't flying blind. You are just adapting to a faster cycle.
And Elena Vernon noted the rules of product experimentation are collapsing alongside those cycles, especially when you factor in inference costs.
Yes, the cost of computing power required to run these AI models, the inference cost, is incredibly high right now.
So the old rules of experimentation are dead because you can't simply throw AI at every user problem without destroying your profit margins.
Exactly. Minor copy tweaks are useless due to AI personalization anyway. Product teams now have to iterate on monetization and pricing models just as fast as they iterate on features.
Which is why tools like Orb are stepping in, allowing teams to quickly model usage-based pricing simulations. They don't have to wait 3 sprints for engineering to build out the billing infrastructure anymore.
Right, because the stakes for monetization are higher than ever. And this raises an important question. When the traditional markers of progress disappear, and you're balancing high inference costs against bounded bets, how do you manage the sheer complexity of the ecosystem?
Yeah, navigating that ambiguity makes certain roles incredibly difficult. Aunt Murphy argues that platform product management is currently the most demanding role in tech.
I would agree with that. They don't just build a shiny single feature. They manage multiple audiences, entirely invisible infrastructure work, delayed outcomes, and wildly complex system dependencies.
And communicating that complexity across a company requires understanding the timescales of play, because different stakeholders look at the exact same situation, but they perceive it through entirely different backgrounds shaped by their own daily timescales.
Give me an example of how that timescale clash actually happens, like practically speaking.
Sure. Imagine a platform outage. A software engineer looks at that bug and perceives it through the timescale of a 4-hour fix before they can go home.
Right, very immediate.
But the VP of Finance looks at the exact same bug and perceives it through the timescale of a missed Q3 revenue target because the enterprise launch gets pushed back a week.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They are looking at the same event, but their timescales make them speak different languages. You have to use visual models, like dependency mapping, to bridge that gap and force them to see each other's reality.
This is exactly why the traditional product manager title is basically dead. The new role is complexity management. It's about prioritizing strategic restraint and ecosystem-level thinking.
Managing a complex product ecosystem sounds exactly like that space war strategy from the A16Z article.
Oh, yeah, the one about winning orbital advantage.
Yes. It laid out how you win by building resilient satellites and maintaining launch capacity. But the critical mechanism is that you have to defend your orbital advantage without destroying the space environment that everyone relies on.
Right, because if you generate too much orbital debris by blowing things up, nobody can fly.
It is the perfect analogy for platform management. You are protecting your platform's advantage, but if you generate too much technical debt or stakeholder friction, your corporate orbital debris, you destroy the very environment your product needs to survive.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, just like you can't leave orbital debris in space, you can't just dump digital debris onto the internet anymore.
And what we see with SEO.
Exactly.
Right?
Look at product-led SEO. It used to be about publishing hundreds of passive blog posts and just hoping for traffic. That is digital debris.
So what's the modern approach?
True product-led SEO today is an active ecosystem strategy. It requires routing users directly into action-oriented flows at the exact moment of intent. You're designing a resilient system to capture demand, not just throwing content into the void.
And if you don't manage the ecosystem actively, the knowledge within it just rots. Project documentation goes stale the literal minute a project goes live.
Oh, always.
All the why behind the system behavior gets trapped in the original architect's head. The knowledge dies at launch because it isn't actively maintained as part of a living ecosystem.
Dealing with all of this, the ecosystem complexity, the collapsing of old output metrics, the constant integration of expensive AI models, it isn't just a technical or operational hurdle. It is a profound psychological challenge.
And that's what's being called the new inner game, right?
Yes. As AI makes the actual physical execution of tasks incredibly abundant, emotional clarity becomes your ultimate competitive advantage.
What exactly does that inner game look like, on a Tuesday afternoon at the office?
Well, the teams that will actually thrive are the ones who can confront interpersonal conflict head-on. They embrace public failure during those bounded bets, and they manage their own fear without letting it dictate their strategic actions.
Because if you aren't hiding behind a mountain of JIRA tickets or lines of code anymore, you have to actually deal with the human elements of the work.
Exactly. Which brings up self-sabotage. There is a fascinating insight that self-sabotage usually hides a psychological reward.
Like we drag our feet on a project because it protects us from the possibility of failure.
Right, or from looking foolish in front of our peers. Real change requires facing reality and taking meaningful action, instead of just mistaking the appearance of being busy for actual productivity.
And that level of emotional clarity is absolutely required for leadership. Consider Wes Cow's definition of what it means to be inspiring at work today.
It's not about motivational fluff, is it?
No, and it's not about standing on a table giving a speech either. Being inspiring means presenting a highly concrete point of view and showing your team exactly how taking a specific action improves their daily reality. It requires structuring your empathy.
Here's where it gets really interesting, structuring empathy. Let's talk about Dan Harmon's story circle.
Wait, the framework he uses to write Rick and Morty?
Yes, the exact framework. It turns the classic hero's journey into 8 repeatable steps. A character is in a zone of comfort. They want something. They enter an unfamiliar situation, adapt to it, get what they wanted, pay a heavy price for it, and return to their familiar situation having fundamentally changed.
Now, why are we applying a Hollywood television writing structure to a deep dive about enterprise AI software?
Because it is an algorithm for human storytelling. When you're a PM pitching a complex, expensive AI integration to stakeholders, you don't list features. You use this strict 8-step structure to frame the pitch.
Oh, I love that. So how does that sound in a pitch?
You say, our support team is comfortable with their current dashboard, but they want to clear tickets faster. We introduce this unfamiliar AI triage tool.
And then they have to adapt and learn to trust it.
Right. Ticket resolution speed doubles, but the price they pay is they now have to manually review highly complex edge cases. And finally, they return to their daily workflow, having changed from data typists into strategic editors.
Wow. You use this strict framework to turn absurdly technical ideas into accessible stories rooted in meaningful human struggle.
Yes. As our tools get more artificial, the premium on raw, emotional human storytelling actually skyrockets.
It is the ultimate counterbalance to the technology. You utilize the AI to handle the raw data processing and the execution speed, but you rely on the story circle, your emotional clarity, and your understanding of human timescales to actually align your team and drive the vision forward.
Exactly.
So, what does this all mean? Let's bring this entire journey together. We started by looking at the trap of the AI era, how making execution incredibly cheap acts as a magnifying glass that exposes and accelerates any misalignment in your team.
We explored why taste, the strict discipline to protect a vision by constantly saying no to merely good ideas, is the new baseline superpower.
We talked about the mechanics of throwing out outdated output metrics like lines of code or confidence scores in favor of running outcome-based bounded bets.
And we saw how managing this incredible platform complexity requires not just technical prowess, but deep emotional clarity and the ability to tell a compelling human story.
For you listening to this right now, whether you are writing code, designing new user workflows, or leading a massive department, the fundamental truth of your career has irrevocably shifted.
Your true market value is no longer tied to your raw output or how fast you can type.
Your value is in your judgment. It is in your emotional resilience to navigate ambiguity. And it's in your unique ability to bridge the communication gap between different human timescales and perspectives.
That is so true.
If AI eventually handles 100% of the execution, and humans are left entirely with the messy business of judgment, conflict resolution, and defining taste, will the future tech company look less like an industrial software factory and more like an ancient philosophy debate club? Think about that next time you sit down at your keyboard to work. Are you just laying bricks as fast as you can, or are you finally ready to direct the magic?
Spoken Tech, for your ears.